It's time for Bourbon with Friends, the bourbon podcast that never takes itself too seriously. Pull up a chair, grab a glass, and remember, a bourbon with friends can change the world. Here we go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Bourbon with Friends. I'm Paul, joined by Connor. Today we have a very special guest. He plays Jimmy on the hit TV show Yellowstone. You might have heard about it. I don't know if you haven't. You're living under a rock or I don't know, not living at all. Jefferson White, how's it going, my friend?
It's good, man. Thanks for having me. It's great to meet you guys. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, same here. It's really fun when you have somebody on a podcast that also does a podcast because you know you don't have to really worry about anything just from a sound system-wise being messed up.
It's the opposite, dude. I'm going to deliberately sabotage this. I know all the ways to ruin it for you.
That's fine. But then it'll be comedy in action, right? Like we'll sit and be like, hey, guess what? Check out this little clip where Jefferson White just really fucked our whole podcast up.
It's great. Even better, though. That's even better. The clicks, controversy drives clicks.
Yeah, exactly.
We live in an engagement-driven world. And speaking of engagement, right at the top of this episode, to keep people engaged, what's your podcast, Jeff? Like, what got you into doing your podcast, and kind of what's the name of it and everything?
So me and my friend Jen Landon, who plays Teeter on the show, we host the official Yellowstone podcast. So we host a podcast where we talk about Yellowstone. We sort of do recaps of the episodes. We talk to our friends who are on the show, the folks who make the show. And that's a real joy. It's a funny, we get to approach this thing as actors, which often means we have a sort of ant's eye view on it. We're often very much in the dark. So it's been a really incredible way to talk to people who make the decisions, talk to people who work in different departments that we would never otherwise get to interface with, and just kind of learn from everybody. So that's been a real treat.
It's an interesting concept, and I wasn't going to ask this as the first question, but I think like people, especially Connor and I, we love movies, we love TV, right? Like we're kind of buffs. You guys as actors, right? When you're walking in, to start a new season, do you guys only know like a show by show basis, or do you kind of have a tendency of the whole, like where that season at least ends?
It really depends on the show. Every show is a little different, and movies are also different because obviously with a movie you've got the script, you've got the sort of beginning, middle, and end right in front of you. On Yellowstone, it's really varied a lot from season to season. Some of the seasons it's sort of trickled out as we've been there, and we have these sort of exciting surprises. It's a little bit like, also because our jobs depend on the show, it's a little bit sometimes like, a comic book coming out about your own life. You get a script while you're in Montana and you're sort of reading, frantically flipping through the pages to find out if you live or die sometimes, which is a really wild experience, especially, on our show. Like Jimmy's fallen off horses like 6 times. Every time Jimmy goes off a horse, I have no idea whether he's going to live or die until I get the next script. So sometimes you're very, very in the dark. And then as we've gone on, now I think Taylor has really, Taylor Sheridan, the show's creator, is really incredibly, he writes at a sort of level of quality, but also quantity that I find really remarkable, because he's doing like 6 shows at any given time. And now he's getting us all these episodes before we even start production. So that's a huge gift to kind of know where it's going. That means you can be planting seeds in the first episode for stuff that comes in the 6th episode. You can be planting seeds this season for stuff that comes next season. Although we've never really, and you won't be surprised to hear, nobody really tells me much in advance. I have no idea what happens next. I have no idea what Jimmy's fate is or anybody else's. I'm operating at a very, very low level,
But your storyline is cool though. Like it's almost like a show within a show, right? Like you kind of how your character is spun off and all that kind of like interesting thing, right? Like that's kind of the real fun part about Jimmy in and of itself. Is everything is completely different in some aspects from the storyline of the show.
Yeah, which is a blessing and a curse. It's been really cool to have more responsibility, to have this little plot line of my own, this little adventure that Jimmy's been on with his fiance and now wife, Emily. That's exciting to get more responsibility, but it's also pretty scary because the action of the show revolves around the Yellowstone Ranch. And thus, you want to be as close to the center of that as possible. As Jimmy drives off into the sunset, I'm also driving off away from Kevin Costner, Luke Grimes, Cole Hauser, Kelly Riley, the reason people watch the show. The people watch the show for the Dutton family, so driving away from the Dutton family isn't necessarily the best thing for your job security, which is also funny because it's like, that's the same thing for Jimmy, right? Jimmy's left with this decision he has to make. Is he going to stay at the Yellowstone, stay with what is familiar, even if it's uncomfortable, even if he's the low man, even if he's always getting his ass kicked, he at least knows the lay of the land? Or is he going to go to the Sixes with Emily and try to sort of build this life for himself? So it's a really interesting kind of fork in the road for Jimmy that also parallels a fork in the road for me. Because if you give me that choice in real life, I might stay with what's familiar. I might stay as close to the big man as possible. But the character went off on this adventure, and that means that I'm also going off on this adventure. I'm working down in Texas while most everybody else is working up in Montana,
Mm-hmm. Were you like a movie and TV kind of fan growing up?
My background's in theater. I grew up in Iowa. I lived in Iowa until I was 22. I went to college in Iowa and studied theater, and then moved to New York when I was 23. I did a year in Kentucky in between. I did a year in Louisville at the Actors Theater of Louisville there. So my background was always in theater. And so I kind of have been slow to pick up. I often feel quite illiterate in film and television. It's taken me a while to catch up because people speak a really specific language on set. They have a sort of shared pool of things that they're familiar with. They're always sort of speaking in references. There's a kind of whole language to film and television. And I'm just now, as a 33-year-old, sort of taking it, in the process of educating myself about all of this stuff.
The reason I asked is because it's got to be kind of interesting. Like, I remember Dances with Wolves, Waterworld, those types of things. And now, it's kind of like the athlete mentality, right? When all these guys that watch Tom Brady play, and now they're like playing with Tom Brady because they're still around. Like, the Costner effect of that's got to be kind of cool for someone like yourself who's, younger and kind of coming. Like, even Cole Hauser. I remember Cole Hauser from Too Fast, Too Furious. And I guarantee you, people don't really think about that. The funny shit about that, and if I ever get a chance to talk to him, it's going to be really funny because my dad actually I grew up in South Florida. My dad actually put all of the electrical work in on the mansion where they did that. So I've actually been there and stuff like that. So it was a really kind of cool, like, little piece.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, that's amazing. What the hell?
Yeah, it's a very interesting kind of side note to that. But
yeah.
Like, it's cool. You did not, even though you grew up in Iowa, you didn't grow up around horses, right?
I didn't, man. I grew up in a little town, and Iowa's mostly there's not a ton of beef out in Iowa. It's a lot of pork, it's a lot of corn, it's a lot of soybeans. So people there's not really working horse ranches in Iowa per se. People have a lot of space, so there's a lot of sort of hobby horse operations in Iowa, because people are working with animals. There's a ton of farmland. But none of my friends, I grew up in a tiny little town surrounded by farms. I had friends that grew up on farms, but none of them had horses. That was such a I sort of completely missed the boat on that one. So when I started doing Yellowstone in 2016, I hadn't touched a horse in my life. It was really like my first day getting on a horse was basically day one of rehearsal for the show, which was a pretty wild experience, man. It's been catch up ever since then for like 6 years now.
Going off of that, Jeff, for the people listening that might not know the story, and I'm sure you've rehashed this plenty of times, but can you talk about just a little bit about how you came to Yellowstone and how that process started?
Yeah, so I had been I kind of lucked out. I moved to New York when I was 23, and it really is, acting is such a stupid, weird job. Like, I love it. It's at its best, it's like a high art. It's a sort of beautiful thing. But when it comes to getting paid to do it, it's really like right place, right time. You know how it is. Like, yeah, the best actors.
Luck of the draw sometimes.
100%, man. And I want to believe, things have worked out pretty good for me so far. And I wish I could attribute that to some quality in me. But I think really the truth is that it's really about right place, right time, because I know so many brilliant actors who just are still kind of waiting for their Yellowstone, for their big break, So I showed up in New York when I was 23, and I auditioned for a show, and they were looking for this naive young soldier who was in way over his head. And that was a show called The Americans. And I just lucked out and got that job. And then while I was doing that, the director who was going to be directing the next episode was watching the dailies of that. And he was about to go make another show called Manhattan, about the Manhattan Project. So this was a show that was shooting in Santa Fe, New Mexico, a period piece set during World War II. And they were looking for a guy whose nickname was Iowa, because he was a naive young soldier who got shipped from Iowa straight to Los Alamos in New Mexico. And I just kind of walked into the room and I was like, hey, what's up? I'm from Iowa. I doubt that anybody else you're going to talk to today is from Iowa. There's not a lot of us in the industry, you know? So it was really just a right place, right time thing. And it ended up that the creator of the show had gone to school at University of Iowa, the Iowa Writers Workshop, and had eaten at a restaurant that I was washing dishes at when I was like 14. It was just this kind of very right place, right time, fortuitous thing that I fell into. And then I worked in TV and film for 5 or 6 years. I was in Budapest doing a show called The Alienist.
That was a really good show. I really enjoyed that show.
Yeah, and it's been fun to see. I'm really enjoying watching 1923 because this stuff around the turn of the century I find really fascinating. So The Alienist took place in like 1899 in New York City. It's like a murder mystery show. If anybody hasn't seen it, it's really nice. It's fun to watch. So I was doing that show in Budapest.
TNT.
Yeah, TNT, exactly. And I got this audition for Yellowstone, and I was auditioning to play Casey. And I read it, and I was like, okay, this guy is a badass Navy SEAL. He's the toughest motherfucker in the world. He kills like 4 guys in the first episode. He's supposed to be like incredible horseman. In the first episode, he like tames a wild stallion and jumps up on it and runs laps. I was like, oh, there's no chance. I knew that wasn't me, but I read the whole script and I saw this character Jimmy and I was like, that's me, that fuck up right there, that guy that gets tased and tied to a chair and branded, gets his ass kicked, that's me. So I made an audition tape for Casey, which still exists somewhere, although I'm sure it's terrible. But I also made my own little guerrilla tape for Jimmy, and I sent that in at the same time. And I was like, hey, I don't know if you guys are even seeing people for this yet, but this is me. I'm this guy. I'm, just like Jimmy. I'm from a tiny little town that's not, I don't have any ranching experience. I grew up around farms, but not on a farm. I grew up sort of adjacent to these kind of massive agricultural empires, but never touched them myself in a pretty hardscrabble little town. So it was a really like kind of just right place, right time again. And I went and met Taylor, and I was worried that my lack of experience was going to be a detriment, but I think he saw, hey, this kid is willing to work. He doesn't have any experience, but he'll work for it. And that's exactly the position that Jimmy's in. So it just kind of lined up exactly right. And then even making that first season, none of us really knew what it was going to be. We loved the script. Taylor's a genius. You meet Taylor and there's no doubt. He's one of those guys. I'm sure you guys have met these people. You meet them and there's just this kind of aura of, he has this aura of sort of just cool, calm control. He's an incredible leader. I met him and we all trusted him and would have done anything for him, even if it didn't happen to be such a sort of hit show, So we all went out and made it and just like kind of sat around crossing our fingers that we get to do more. The first season, it was on Paramount Network, which was a very young network at the time. I think we were like their second original series. We had a lot of stuff working against us, but working for us, we had Kevin Costner and Taylor Sheridan's script. So it really, it's been such a miracle that we get to keep doing it. Because as an actor, you never get a job that lasts more than, 3 months. You're lucky if you get a job that lasts 3 months. So to have a job that lasts 6 years is like such a miracle.
And counting.
Yeah. Who knows how much longer? We're all crossing our fingers and just riding it out.
The funny thing is I actually went, I always like going and rewatching seasons because I always think you pick up on stuff that you didn't before. And especially with like Kelly Riley, right? Her accent, but I felt like she didn't come into Beth until like episode 3 or 4 of like who Beth actually is, where like she embraces, she's also English. So like her like accent and everything, you hear her talk off the show and you're just like, what the shit? Like it's crazy, but like those like little interesting things. But you get talked to about Yellowstone like a fuck ton. So let's talk about some other stuff that maybe you don't get to, and like let's make it fun. We talked about Yellowstone for 14 minutes. We do this for 6 hours, but you know what? Let's do other fun stuff. You spent time in Louisville. We actually talked about this on Instagram. You were around all the whiskey stuff. You have openly said you're not a huge drinker, but you weren't also a huge horse person. What? But the interesting part about it is whiskey has become such an inherent staple on Yellowstone, right? Buffalo Trace has never spent ad money on TV before until Yellowstone. Like that is like a massive thing, right? They're the most award-winning distillery. So what is it like, you know, talking like it's about Yellowstone, but it's probably different than what you've been talking to before. What's like that whiskey kind of culture in the show? Like, are you around it? Is it stuff that like you guys on set talk about, or is it just something that's there that is almost in passing with you guys as actors, and how you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a big part of the whole sort of Western culture. It's a big part of the cowboy culture. Obviously, we're working most when we're on set, so there's not a lot of drinking on set. But a lot of these guys, you know, they're passionate about this stuff too. You know, it's stuff that they really care about. I know Forey J. Smith, who plays Lloyd on the show, he's got a whiskey brand that he's partnered with. Exactly. Yeah, and there's Ryan Bingham, who plays Walker on the show. He's worked with whiskey brands. Like, I think a lot of the guys on the show really love this stuff and really know their stuff. And once again, I'm just a naive moron. You know, I'm so clueless. And I think, you know, you guys are experts in this. You can you have a literacy in it. You know, you can tell the difference.
I might be saying a little much, but maybe.
Here's what I'll do. What we'll do is after the show, we could have planned this ahead of time, but it's fun that it worked out with us. What we'll do is we'll swap like some contact information. I'll put together a little care package with samples and give you like a little walkthrough.
Oh, amazing!
Of
That'd
some
be so
good
kind
stuff.
of you.
We do it. We try to do it with like a lot of different people if we can, but we'll send you like some samples of some different stuff and, you know, different proofs.
We should do a bourbon, a rye, an Irish, and a Scotch, and then throw in like something that's like 140 proof in there. And
I'll just send them a bottle of our barrel pick while we're at it too.
Yeah, I send a bottle of the barrel pick.
Oh, that's so kind of you guys. Thank you so much. That's so generous of you.
All it'll cost you just got to come back on the show. I'm just kidding.
Listen, I'd be honored. What size shoes do you wear? Because let me tell you, I have so many free pairs of cowboy boots. I've done. I feel incredibly lucky, but I've done a lot of ads for cowboy boots, and every time they're like, "Do you want to keep any of these boots?" And every time the answer is, "I would like to keep all of the boots, please." So I've got just like a real.
Oh my God, I'm 11.
I'm an 11 and a half. I feel like there's
11 and a half,
some synergy here. I feel like we can make
I'm an 11
work.
too. We're all 11s.
Oh, we're making this work, certainly.
We'll swap whiskey and boots and do another show, and we'll just put the we'll like put the feet back, sit by a fire or something. Be
whiskey
fun.
And boots.
Whiskey and boots, yeah.
Boot scooting whiskey. That's the name
exactly
of the episode.
Right. Yeah, boom, done.
Yeah,
making deals. Making deals.
Yeah,
this is a cowboy barter system.
It's fun. So you don't really. I can't actually remember this. And you don't really drink whiskey even on the show, right? Like, there's not even I don't know if there's a scene where you're.
Jimmy doesn't. No, he'll drink a beer every now and then, but he's not a big drinker either. I think he feels the same way I do, which is like, don't drink at work. You know, like around those guys, he gets enough shit. He's got to sort of stay. Keep it tight.
With that though, is it actually beer and like whiskey, or is it not on set? I think that's what a lot of people are curious about.
It's not.
Can you say it?
Absolutely not. No, it's very funny on set. It's the same with like eating on set. You know, you get stuck. It sounds fun. Drinking real whiskey on set sounds fun for the first half of the day. But when you're doing these scenes, as they're moving cameras around, you do them over and over and over again. And I think even the most, you know, avid connoisseur of whiskey would get pretty sick of drinking the same thing over and over again for 16 hours. Also, you wouldn't be great at remembering your lines or hitting your marks by the end of the day, I imagine.
I feel like there's a couple of people, though, that you probably would never know if they were drunk or not because their characters
that might
so
be right.
hostile. You know,
that's exactly right. Yeah. I've gotten stuck before with food where it's the first take. You're doing a scene where you're eating, right? And on the first take, you establish what you're going to do for every subsequent take. And sometimes there's, 16, 20 takes. There was a scene in like season 2 where on the first take, I was like, I think Jimmy's really hungry. I think he would eat this whole ear of corn over the course of this scene. But that meant that by the end of the day, I had eaten like 16 ears of corn. It was
God.
it was bad, man. It was really, by the end of it, I was like sort of taking a bite and then
Your
finding
butt must have
way
been like a BB gun by the next day.
Bro, I didn't poop. It was bad for like a week and a half. My body was in crisis.
Do I got something for you, brother? Listen, man. If you haven't heard of Metamucil, you got to take it, man. That's all I'm going to say. That's the only Metamucil plug here.
You got it.
Dude, he loves Metamucil so much. His life's ambition is to get Metamucil to be the
26.
sponsor of our podcast. And he's 26.
That's amazing. Well, you guys are young. I used to feel like I was
I'm older
the
than
young guy.
you.
How old are you?
I'm 37.
Okay, great. But you got a kid, so you've got important life achievements.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
True.
You're
Yeah.
37 with a kid is right on track.
2 kids. 2 kids.
How old? Oh, I don't know if you guys talk about this on the pod. Do you talk about your
you're
kids
good.
on the pod?
Yeah,
How
yeah.
old is your older kid?
3.
Oh, that's so sweet, man. They're gonna be. That's a perfect age range for siblings too.
Yeah. It's. I tell everyone, being a dad is it is actually like the most mix of wanting to like throw something and love it forever you've ever seen. It's the most wild
sure.
emotion.
Yeah, the highs and lows.
Yeah. So are you a big sports fan?
Dude, I'm gonna be really honest with you. It's so funny that I wound up on this like tough guy cowboy show because I'm also not a sports fan. I'm a fucking nerd. I'm like the
Oh, we can talk about nerd
deepest
shit too.
vein
Yeah, so what-
of nerd cred?
What kind of
shit.
nerdy stuff are we talking about, Jeff?
I mean, I LARPed for like 12 years.
Wow.
I was
That is pretty
clinically
nerdy.
addicted to World of Warcraft for 3 years when I was
By
in
the way,
college.
what did you think about the movie?
I haven't seen the movie because of how triggering that would be. I had to I'm not kidding. In 3 years of college, I played 1 year of World of Warcraft. I was in the game for a year in
That's
3
nuts.
years. That means I was playing 8 hours a day for 3 years. So it's pretty much, it could not be more bizarre that I wound up on a cowboy show because this is kind of the exact opposite of my actual personality, which is also a tremendous gift because it means that I have so much to learn. It means that I'm a sponge, you know. Everybody on these sets has so much to teach me. It's been like an incredible gift to get to know this alternate world. I just one day I want to get to take 4EJ Smith to a LARPing event. You know, I've been doing his thing. I've been doing the cowboy thing for 6 years. One day I just want to get to take him to a LARPing, you know, event. We could do a kingdom-wide event. Just to
Is
see it,
LARPing
you know?
is LARPing kind of like what do they do at Comic-Con? What when they dress up?
Cosplay.
Cosplay. Is that similar?
It's a facet of it. So LARPing is live
Okay.
action role playing. It's
Right.
foam sword fighting. You know,
Right.
there's a lot of sort of
You've
different...
probably seen some TikTok videos of some really bad examples of it.
Yes. It is a bit of a
I have.
cultural, it's a bit of a meme, a bit of a laughing stock at times. But I'll also tell you, boy, was it some of the most fun I've ever had in my life. You know, I grew up loving like fantasy stuff, Lord of the Rings, you know, sword fights and dragons
Yeah.
and magic and all of
Look at
that.
this.
And,
We're like soulmates over here. Like I'm the biggest. I can talk like Gollum. Like it's like I
Yeah.
used to sit around. I used to sit around and go to parties, and after I would drink, I would crawl around on the floor. People would dare me to do like Smeagol. Sit around and go, Smeagol, why is you crying, Smeagol? And I just dance around
that
the
is
floor
really
like a little
good.
fucking
And
idiot.
I'll tell you, that's LARPing. So LARPing is kind of immersively pretending. But that's a long answer to a short question. I like sports. I like sports just fine. I watch the NBA finals every year. I really like watching basketball. I find basketball very fun to watch. I'm not a big football guy just because I kind of missed the boat. You know, I like should be. I grew up in Iowa, but at a certain point I felt like I had missed it. So I had too many questions and it kind of, it got past me. Where are you guys sports guys?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, I
everything.
mean,
I go to
sports
England
fans, yeah.
just to watch Manchester United play.
Oh, amazing, man. So you're a soccer guy?
Soccer, football, I played baseball in college. Connor, you played baseball too, right?
I played baseball as well, and I'll buy most UFC pay-per-views, MMA. I'll buy most
Big
of them.
UFC
So
guy,
like I'm a big UFC guy.
I've kind of gotten into that a little bit recently myself, just out of curiosity.
Yeah,
You should have seen him when
he had Bruce Buffer on the show.
Bruce
yeah,
Buffer on. Yeah, he was fanboy.
Big moment.
I feel I'm very ignorant, very naive with all of
He's
this.
the guy that
stuff.
does It's Time. Starts the show.
He's
Oh,
the guy who
hell
announces
Oh,
it.
amazing.
Yeah, he's always wearing a 10 out of 10 suit. Yeah, he's a stud.
As a nerd, fella, do you still play? Like, do you still game and stuff, or is that kind of?
I do. Yeah,
time?
I have it. It's very funny. I have a sort of arm's length relationship to it because of how much of my life it's already eaten. You know, I have to be a little cautious as I get into a game because I've got a bit of an addictive personality.
God of War?
God of War, love God of War. Great game. Love a single player game.
Love
Casual,
I
easy.
agree.
You can put 100 hours into it and walk away. That's great. I have a lot of trouble with stuff that kind of gives you an endless sort of bottomless pit. I played probably thousands of hours of Call of Duty. Like I really, those things are really time eaters for me.
What do you like to do the most when you're not just Jefferson White by himself outside of gaming? Like we know gaming, right? But like, what's your other kind of guilty pleasure that you like to do, like in your time?
You know, I like working out. I've gotten really into that lately. I've got a trainer in New York that I really love doing that. I run a lot. I've been running since I was in high school. That's been a big part of my life for a long time. It's a great way. Like actors, we work all over the place. We travel to all these different cities to work, and it's a really fun way to like explore a new city. Kind of wherever you go, you can go for a jog. So I really, really cherish that. I take a lot of pictures. I'm big into photography, and then sort of collecting. Like I've gotten really into, on eBay, basically, you can get any camera that's been made in the last 80 years. And in a lot of cases, they're really cheap. Like if you get into sort of vintage,
Polaroids,
everything, all this, like for years and years and years, for 100 years now, they've been making sort of consumer cameras, producing an incredible number of them. So it's really fun on eBay. I'm always kind of hunting down weird old cameras and then taking pictures with them, which I really love doing. I watch a lot of just dumb stuff on YouTube.
Dude, the YouTube rabbit holes are killer, dude. I was watching a YouTube video the other day, and it was funny enough. It was the history of the Balrogs in Lord of the Rings, or the fire.
Balrogs, the Balrogs.
Yeah, we brought it all back.
It was like an hour, and I watched the whole thing, and I was like,
"We've done this before, man.
TikTok,
you know how to tie it."
Like,
bro, I know exactly what you mean. It really is like the algorithm. Also, I feel like I'm smart and kind of interesting and unique until I get on YouTube, and they know me so well. They know exactly what I'm going to click on, and I'll just click and click and click all day. I got.
It's almost like your phone is listening to you or something.
That's
exactly right.
What did you think of The Hobbit?
I didn't love it. I loved the book when I was a kid. I really loved that book. But I'm all about people trying to make stuff, reinvent, do whatever you want. It didn't have quite the sort of gravity and integrity of vision that I felt like Lord of the Rings had. Lord of the Rings felt like such a
drawn out.
Yeah. You're talking about 3 movies for a book that's about half the length of the Fellowship of the Ring. You know what I mean? Like Fellowship of the Ring. That's a pretty juicy book. They managed to do that in one movie.
Yeah. Well, okay. So you've read the books, right?
Yeah.
So who do you think is a character from the book in Lord of the Rings? I'm talking.
Yeah.
From the Lord of the Rings that wasn't in the movie that you wish would have been in the movie, because I know who mine would be.
I mean, I'm kind of partial to Tom Bombadil.
My guy. That's it. That was exactly what I was going for. My guy.
And a second part to that question, Jeff. If you could be cast as anyone in the Lord of the Rings movies, like who would you want to play? I'm talking the original trilogy. If you see, you seem to me, now that I know that you're a LARPer, that you're a Legolas guy. I can see you being a Legolas guy.
I can't say I see it, yes.
Let's be honest, though. Legolas is kind of, well, maybe Aragorn is like the Casey of Lord of the Rings. I think I would get the audition for Legolas. I would say, oh, he's the toughest, most badass archer. Not going to happen.
End up as Gollum.
We got to find the Jimmy. Exactly. There's got to be a Jimmy. There's like some.
Who's the Jimmy of Lord of the Rings?
Gollum gets the shit beat out of him all the fucking time.
Offensive. Don't say that.
Gets the shit beat out of him. He's kind of the hero sometimes.
What about Sam?
Sam, yeah.
Yeah,
Samwise
one of those
Gamgee's the
other
best
sort of
character in Lord
lesser
of the Rings.
hobbits. Yeah, there's
He's not a, Sam isn't a lesser. Sam is
yeah,
a
but who are the
star.
other two? Piper and Mary.
Yeah.
Pippin
And Mary.
Yeah.
That's right.
I met Pippin actually, or no, Mary. I met Mary. He's a huge Manchester United fan, and I met him in Washington D.C. at a Manchester United Barcelona match.
Oh, those guys are great. Those guys are amazing. I think I'm less important than those guys as well. I think whoever the Jimmy of Lord of the Rings are, is the fact that we can't remember his name speaks volumes. You know,
you could be Pippin. You could be a Pippin.
Pippin has a great singing voice too.
Oh,
can you sing?
Absolutely not. There we go. I almost had it. Almost had it and lost it.
So you're a theater guy. You're not a musical theater guy then.
No, yeah. My lane is pretty narrow, to be honest. And now I'm mostly, I haven't done. I wish I had done more theater in the last 10 years. What I've mostly done is play creepy dudes. I play mostly just like creepy, weird guys. That's the lane that I've found, is freaky dude who did a crime, who gets arrested in a couple of episodes. So
Maybe
by
he is
season
Gollum.
8, though, you keep working out. Jimmy's gonna show up looking like a fucking MMA fighter, and then
That's
what
exactly
happens?
right, like a monster, dude. I'm working on it, bro. Because in the basically intervening time between seasons 4 and seasons 5 of Yellowstone, time has passed, and Jimmy's been working on the 6s the whole time. So I really worked my ass off for like 16 months to try to make a sort of difference physically, to try to look physically different. And let me tell you, I was so annoying to everybody in my life. I got a trainer. I was like counting every calorie I ate. I worked so hard, and
terrible.
it did not make much of a difference. I've got the image in my head. We were talking about the pitfalls of social media. I've got the image in my head of like the transformations you see on there.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I tried. I really gave it the old college try for like a year and a half. You can ask anybody in my life how insufferable I was about this.
I'm gonna give you the code. So you're not like a naturally like broad dude, and that's nothing wrong with that. Like I need to count calories because I naturally am a broad fucker. You need to eat like 5 cheeseburgers a day, then go to the fucking gym. Don't count calories. Yeah, like you don't like. My brother-in-law actually, like, not a lot of people know this, is a world record holder. He has 2 world records in the 18-inch deadlift.
Oh fuck!
Yeah, he's a fucking monster. So he was like 1,200 pounds. Is stupid. Like, I'm just like that. I would have just sat there and looked at the fucking bar and like, nah, fam, I'm good. But like, that's all it takes. Like, if you want to put on muscle and weight, just go eat your ass off. And then what you do is you get bulky. Then you diet a little bit to lose. If you get a gut, then you diet.
Well, I hate to say it. This is what I did. So I was at 160. Got up to 200, kind of dirty bulking, just eating like a lunatic.
Shit.
I think my highest was 205. And
That's
then,
a big jump.
And then I had to take my shirt off on Yellowstone, so I had to shred down to like my goal was 178, and I wound up at like 172. So now I'm counting calories, but it's so that I stay in a surplus because now I'm sort of trying to bulk again. But listen, guys, the internet is poison.
Yes,
it is. The internet is poison for your brain because I've got my whole it's just, and being an actor working in Hollywood, God bless it, it's just part of the job. Driving yourself insane about how you look is part of the job.
Well, you never know when you're gonna have to be naked in like a field, you know.
It's exactly right. You never know when, on Yellowstone it's happened a number of times. It's happened on a lot of shows I've worked on, and you just have to. It just kind of comes with the territory. But boy, have I been annoying to everybody that I love for a long time about this.
Can you still go out, like walk around? Do you get noticed? Like, this is like the fun shit. Like, I don't know, like, and I don't know if this is like annoying. Like, we get a lot of actors, but I like asking just weird shit like that. Like, I like to know the human of who you are. Like, do you still get to like go out to a restaurant and people are like, who the fuck are you?
Oh yeah, big time. Yeah, big time. Especially in New York. Out in Texas, out in Montana, it's a little more constant, and people are so nice. Like, this is one of these things, you get to a certain level, you get to the Kevin Costner level, you get to the Cole Hauser level. I'm sure it becomes a lot to deal with. At the level that I'm at, people come up, they say, hey, you're on Yellowstone, great to see you, good job. And they, and then they move on with their lives. I'm not that exciting to encounter in the wild.
So you don't have anyone throwing panties at you like Cole Hauser?
Absolutely not. No. People are very nice to me. They're very respectful to me. To be honest, it just makes me feel kind of cool. I'll make you feel cool. if I'm lucky, it happens around my fiance. If I'm lucky, it happens around my friends. So I get to sort of feel like a big man for 30 seconds to a minute.
I'll make you feel really cool, though, man. Like, you set the record for the most likes announcing a celebrity on the show in Bourbon with Friends history. There you go.
Oh, that's nice to hear. It's wild, man. Yellowstone has been a really transformative job in a lot of ways. It's really changed my life in a million ways. It's given me opportunities that I never thought I would have. And it's really, I've grown up alongside Jimmy now. Like, when I started doing the show, I was 27 and now I'm 33. And those are an important, you'll find out, Connor. Those are an important 6 years. Those are like 6 years that are, that's a transformation. I've gone from being a young actor to being an actor in that time.
I'm only laughing because I give Connor so much shit on every episode about how young he is, and you just did it naturally.
No, but
I
it's
love
incredible.
it.
I mean,
it is
respect, because you're smarter than either of us. You're more mature. You're starting from a better place than either of us are. You clearly have not wasted a year of your life playing World of Warcraft. You haven't done a Gollum voice once on this podcast, so you're really
that was fucking cool. Don't fucking make fun of that.
You were better at it than I expected you to be. I'm going to be really honest. Everybody thinks they can do a Gollum voice, and that was a really good one. I was a little worried when you said it, but you
thought it was going to come out like a prepubescent 14-year-old.
I thought it wasn't going to be that good, but then it was very good. And saying that I thought it wasn't going to be that good is also a kind of compliment to you, because you're a big, strong, tough guy. You got a great beard. You've got a bourbon podcast. I didn't expect you to have a good Gollum. I've watched the movie so many times. I'm such a nerd. Like, I've memorized all of his lines. Like, look, we all have like guilty fetishes. What's really what's funny, and just to kind of like spin off, like, you do a podcast. It's really, how did you be the one that got the show, right? Like, that got the Yellowstone podcast? That's a great question. I'm not really sure. I think I'm a little bit uniquely positioned in that I'm a kind of younger guy on the show. I've got a lot of free time. I'm very available. I'm extremely available to help out. So I think they were looking for somebody to do it, and I was around. And I love talking to people. That's one thing about me. I really do love. You're
such a nice, and just to give you a compliment, you're such a humble person, and I love like that about you. Like, that was like, when you meet a celebrity or somebody who's on a show, you never know what you're going to get. And you're such a down-to-earth person. Like, there's no bullshit with you. And that's what I think I really appreciate.
Oh, thanks, man. I think it's so, we all experience this. Yellowstone has also put me in a really unique position. And I think a lot of this experience has been constantly reminding myself that Yellowstone is going to end. Like, God bless it. It has changed my life. I'm incredibly grateful, but this too is going to end. And I'm still going to have to be me when Yellowstone is over. I'm still going to have to sort of
10 years from now, God.
Yeah. And this is also just all of us, like, these moments come in our lives and they pass too. And so I'm trying to sort of take this opportunity to learn as much as I can and to avoid the pitfalls of this lifestyle and the sort of, it's a very destabilizing experience in a lot of ways. And so a lot of my job is about trying to stay stable, stay myself, stay in contact with everything that came before Yellowstone that's still going to be here when Yellowstone is over. My friends, my family, my loved ones. Right. I'm very grateful for the fans of Yellowstone, but I don't expect you to be interested in me once Yellowstone is over. And I get it. Like, I have completely realistic expectations. Because this is a wild ride, and then it's going to end, and we're all sort of navigating that in different ways.
That makes a lot of sense. What's an interesting kind of segue into that is your co-host on your podcast, who I didn't put two and two together until just recently, that's Michael Landon's daughter. And I grew up watching Little House on the Prairie and things like that, right? Like, you kind of see, like, you some people have things and they end, and then there's like legacy actors and people like that. That was such an interesting thing. I don't know if you ever grew up watching that show, Little House on the Prairie, or not, but like, that part's got to be cool. And how interesting is it to work with someone like that, and then she turns that Teeter voice on, and you're just like, who the fuck are you?
She's amazing, and to be honest, I didn't know anything about her her father, I didn't really know about her background. I just knew that she, from the beginning, was like an incredibly serious actor. Like she's somebody that I really relate to because she loves acting. She's a bit of an acting nerd. You know, she's been acting her whole life, and she has this kind of adventurous spirit. So she's lived all over the place. She's lived in New York City, in LA. She's lived in Montana. She's lived in New Mexico. She really has lived this kind of incredibly nomadic, adventurous life. So I sort of learned so much about her and felt so kind of connected to her before I learned any of that other stuff. So if anything, I have tremendous respect for Michael and his career, but I think of him as Jen's dad instead of thinking of her as his daughter.
Sure.
You know?
Yeah.
And we're lucky on the show. Like it's also, we're lucky on the show that all of us have, we are all humbled by the experience of trying to learn how to be cowboys. We are all in it together at the bottom of the, pecking order, because we have real cowboys, real wranglers, real horse trainers who work on our show. So all of us actors are in it together, just trying not to embarrass ourselves. And I think that really means we all connect. We're all on the same team. That's a great point of unity. There's not really room for us to have any egos because we all know that we're not the real deal. Because the real
Cowboy
deal
Camp was a real
standing
thing
right there. Yeah, that was a real thing. Yeah. And it continues to be a real thing. We do it every year. We do a sort of week of training and kind of intensive riding. And
is it fun or no?
It's very fun. It's also, it's intense. You're gonna, every time I'm on a horse, I also feel like I'm auditioning, because Taylor contains both of these things. He's a creative genius and he's a true cowboy. He's a rancher. Like he is both of those things in himself. The rest of us, most of us are either one or the other. Taylor's both of them. So those of us that are actors are trying to prove to him that we can live up to what he expects from us on a horse. And those of us that come from the horse world are trying to live up to what he expects from them, on
He's
camera.
A hell of a rider.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
He's amazing. He's like, he's both of these things. So Cowboy Camp is incredible. It's an opportunity to sort of do stuff that we would never otherwise get to do. Like this whole thing is such a, like the easiest, best version of how to have these experiences. We get the best horses in the world that are incredibly well taken care of. We just get to hop on them, ride them around, and then hop off. Like we're so lucky. There is no better way, no easier way to learn how to ride a horse. We have so many advantages, So I think all of us feel incredibly lucky, and we recognize that time is very valuable. And so we really cherish it.
Who is the worst co-star that you have at responding to a text message?
Responding to a text message. I mean, I don't even have some people's numbers. You know what I mean? Like, let's be honest. You're not just giving Jimmy your number. Everybody's pretty good. We're pretty good. We got a bunch of different group chats going. There's different circles. There's circles of group chats. So like
Sorry, go ahead.
No. Well, me, Ian, and Denham, the kind of Bunkhouse Boys trio. We've got a group chat. There's a group chat that's us plus Jen when she came in. There's a big wide one, that includes Cole Hauser, Luke Grimes, Wes Bentley. Like, they're all pretty good,
Who's the person that if you called them, they're answering on the second or third ring, no matter what?
That's a great question. I like to think that Jen would pick up. Me and Eden Brolin, who played Mia, were great friends. I know she'd pick up. Denham would pick up, although he lives in Botswana now most of the year, so the time zone is very different. So I'd have to get the time right. Isn't that amazing? It's like a 18-hour flight or something.
Well, my friend actually is in the military. He just left Africa. He's just got back. He just got to Germany today.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Incredible. Yeah, it's so if I get the time zone right, I could probably get Dee on the phone. Ian Bowen, they're all amazing friends, and it's kind of family at this point. Like there's conflict, you argue, but it's family. We're in this thing together, and we've been in this thing together for a long time.
You're lucky you didn't say one like hands down, because I was going to be like, prove it.
No,
if you would have said one hands down, I'd have been like, all right, do it, prove it.
Kevin Costner, he's picking up my call. Harrison Ford. Sorry, now that Harrison Ford's in.
You know what you would do? You would shit yourself if you actually had his number and called him on this show, and then he picked up. You'd be like, fuck.
I'd be terrified. Yeah. I don't have his number. I don't have Kevin's number. No shot.
Speaking of Kevin, real quick, I'm curious. He's been in so many movies. What's like when you think Kevin Costner? What's the one film you think of?
I mean, it's a lot. So it's funny you mentioned Waterworld earlier. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with that movie. I loved Waterworld, and it gets unnecessary slander. That movie rules.
It's fucking
The
great.
production design is incredible. It's a real achievement in cinema. So I love Waterworld.
96, right?
Something like that. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to watch it. I've never seen it.
I hadn't watched Dances with Wolves when I first worked with Kevin, so I watched it after like season 1 of Yellowstone. Great movie. I've always been obsessed with The Untouchables, and that's my fiance's favorite Costner movie. So we watch that probably once a year. Field of Dreams, amazing. He's the GOAT, like there's too many to name. It just kind of keeps going as you start naming like iconic Costner roles.
Don't go look at his IMDb. You keep having to hit next to go find it. Untouchables was 87. Bull Durham, another great movie.
Bull Durham is great. When I think of Kevin, I'm thinking, and this is, again, I'm 26, so I have a lot of these older movies I'm not privy to off the top of my head, but I think I'm like, that's Superman's dad.
Oh, yeah.
You serious?
Man.
That's Superman's dad.
Okay, hold on. Jefferson, just so you know, he has the biggest man crush on Henry Cavill in the world, like ever. So that is why.
Henry Cavill rocks, dude. He gave us all body dysmorphia. But he's incredible. He's got nerd cred, dude. That guy knows his stuff. He's like obsessed with Warhammer 40K. Builds his own computers. He's making a Warhammer 40K show now. I love Warhammer.
I think part of the reason, this is just rumors, part of the reason he left The Witcher was because he wanted to make that Warhammer 40K TV program, and he wanted to make it right. So
I'm pretty stoked
he's investing all of his time. I
It
don't
does
even
seem
know
like-
what
yeah.
it is, but if Henry Cavill's in it, I'm watching it.
Warhammer
Yeah,
40K rules,
definitely.
dude. I'm excited that people, like a broader audience, is going to get to that because you have to be pretty nerdy to know about it now. It's a tabletop game, so it's all these little, they call them miniatures, all these little guys, but it's a sort of sci-fi space universe, a very sort of grim, dark sci-fi.
Like that game they play in Stranger Things. What's the game? The little board game they play in Stranger
Dungeons and
Things.
Dragons.
Yeah, these things are all
Kinda
kind
like
of,
that.
they're all sort of related to each other. So D&D is like a tabletop RPG that you can use miniatures in D&D. Warhammer is it's a similar sort of oeuvre, but it's really based around, it's like Risk, but with millions of, or like hundreds of little guys that you're moving around a table and having them attack each other. I'm stoked about that show is the point. And
By the way,
Henry Cavill rocks.
Waterworld was 95, but the thing that I know Costner most for, Robin Hood, Men of Thieves, or
Robin
Prince of
Hood.
Thieves.
Man,
What a
he just
soundtrack.
keeps
Do you ever
going,
just
dude.
go watch 90s movies and just go, why do we not have music like that in movies anymore?
Absolutely, yeah. And everything shot on film back then, it just has such like rich contrast and saturation. It just looks so good.
Speaking of classic movies, and I told my dad last night. I'm like, hey, Dad, I'm having Jeff on the show tomorrow.
Oh, yeah. His
dad's-
parents are huge fans of yours, by the way.
Oh, that's very
yeah,
sweet.
no, they love Jimmy. Yeah, and I told him I'd ask this question because I tried to start watching Yellowstone and something happened and I had to take my attention away. So I watched
you had a
episode
Tinder
1.
date.
I watched episode 1 and I haven't seen it since. So I might be one of the first guys to have, like, one of the only guys in the world that's never seen Yellowstone. But I mean to watch it, and I want to watch it at the top of my watch list. So I told my dad yesterday, who's all caught up, watches it all the time. Like, I'm having Jeff on the show. He goes, all right, you ask Jimmy one thing. You say to Jimmy, the best part of Yellowstone is when he figures out what Roadhouse is, because that's the ultimate man movie. So I have 2 questions, Jeff. 2 questions. 1, how does Jimmy not know what Roadhouse is? Because I feel like that's a little sacrilegious. And 2, what are, like, if you had to say like 5 of your favorite movies of all time, what are you putting down there?
I watched Roadhouse for the first time recently, and it did fucking rule. I had never seen it either. That shit rocked. It's pretty badass.
Tight.
Man, now we're trying to get that Kurt Russell bod too, because Kurt Russell, that's goals, dude. He
No,
looked
not
good.
Kurt Russell. That's Patrick Swayze.
Oh,
Patrick Swayze,
Swayze.
yeah.
Forget me. Okay, you got to
That's
cut that.
Swayze.
We love the Swayze. You got to cut all of that, dude. Don't let me embarrass myself. The Swayze body. Swayze looks amazing in that movie. We're all trying to go Swayze mode. He looks great. I'm going to rattle off
Swayze
5
mode.
movies that I've seen recently that I really loved, okay? Here they come.
All right.
I really love Triangle of Sadness. That just came out. I really loved it. I really loved the movie Parasite. Big Bong Joon-ho guy. I really loved. I recently watched these 2. So bear with me here because I'm a bit of a. Now I'm getting kind of. It's a little. We're getting a little. What do you call it?
You're getting away from your cowboy shit.
A little niche. This isn't my cowboy shit. We've been talking
fine.
about action movies. We've been talking about 90 movies. We've been talking about the classics. The Worst Person in the World. Great movie.
I've heard of it. Yeah.
Really fantastic. Sort of, I think it's Swedish. It's very, very good. I just watched Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. And I know that's going to sound goofy, but check it out. It fucking rules.
I see it all over TikTok. And
my kid loves that shit.
When is the villain Death? Is that the villain?
Oh,
Because
yeah.
Puss has used 8 of his 9. So
That's
like his
exactly
little
right.
whistle, and when he's holding 2 Dothraki swords.
Oh yeah,
Like
that shit fucking rules. I love anime,
yeah.
and I was a huge anime nerd when I was a kid. And something about the fight scenes in that movie are just kind of too good.
It has like a Spider-Verse feel to it.
Big
The
time.
animation
Yeah, they
style.
do this kind of
Yeah.
like stop motion shutter speed thing that makes it so that the speed happens in a very cool way. That shit rules. And then I recently watched this Wong Kar-wai movie called In the Mood for Love that was very good. And then I love The Matrix Reloaded. There's a sort of populist one for you. Everybody talks shit about The Matrix Reloaded. That movie has like 4 of the
Loved
best
it.
10 action sequences ever filmed.
Loved it. Yes.
There's like 4 just unbeatable fight scenes. in that movie.
Revolution's not so much. Reloaded, absolutely.
I tend
That's
to
not
agree.
even Keanu Reeves' best action movie though.
Oh my God. Here's
John
a
Wick guy?
John Wick. Yes.
Oh, huge John Wick guy.
This is generational. This is a generational thing.
You might be right. Yeah, I'm a huge like John Wick 4. My most anticipated movie this year.
That
Like,
is very exciting.
It is. I want to see it more than Oppenheimer, more than Dune 2, more than anything that's coming out.
Dune
this year,
2.
almost.
Oh, it's going to be a good year.
Dune.
It's a great year.
Yeah, Dune 2 is coming out this year. I'm happy. Oh, I'm hype as shit for that. Connor, we might actually have to fly and go watch it together because it's our jam.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, man.
Fellas, I'm sorry to say, I got to head out of here. My friends are heading
definitely.
over.
Yeah, no, definitely. We need to wrap it up anyway. Tell everybody where they can follow you on Instagram and all that kind of good stuff.
You can find me on Instagram. I'm at _ Jefferson White. It's the one with the blue check mark. And I hope to see you there. I just want to say, I'm like, everybody who watches Yellowstone is the reason we get to keep doing it. So like, you can talk shit to me. You can do whatever you want. You can make fun of me. You can send me mean messages. That's totally fine. You guys are the reason we get to keep making the show. So I'm just incredibly grateful to everybody who's ever taken the time to watch it, because you've given me the best job I've ever had in my life. It's really changed my life.
Man, I thank you. Thank you so much for joining. This has been great. We'll send you some whiskey and maybe we'll do this again in the near future.
Oh, I'd love that.
Yeah, man. Hey, thanks everyone for listening. I can't even talk right now. And remember, Bourbon with Friends can change the world.
Let's go.